Hello students, so today we'll do Provident Fund, which is there under section 1011, 1012 and 1013 of your IT Act 1961. So Provident Fund is basically a saving scheme in which a sinking fund is created. Every month a stipulated amount is deducted from the salary of the employee as his contribution towards PF. Further, employer also contributes an equal amount towards PF. So there is a matching contribution from the employer side. The employees and employer's contribution are invested in gilt-edged securities, and interest thereon is also credited to the PF account of the employee. So contribution as well as the interest thereupon is credited to the PF account of the employee every month. So the accumulated sum, that is interest plus principal, is given to employee on his retirement or resignation or to his legal heir in case of death of the employee. Since the scheme encourages personal saving at micro level and generates fund for investment at macro level, the government provides deduction under section 80C, which we have already covered in the previous video, which is giving the deductions for investments and savings in certain kind of investment portfolio, which is allowed by the government to claim the deduction under section 80C, and the maximum deduction was 1,50,000. So if I talk about types of Provident Fund, so first type is your statutory Provident Fund, recognized Provident Fund, unrecognized Provident Fund. So statutory Provident Fund was started by British by passing a special act called PF Act 1925. So it was before the independent India. This fund is maintained by the government and semi-government organizations, local authorities, railways, universities and recognized educational institutes. So these are the organizations which still follow the statutory PF, in which there are separate kind of tax treatments which we'll do in detail in the coming slides. Recognized PF. So after getting the independence, the government of India enacted a new law on Provident Fund, which is called as PF Act 1952, and it is made applicable on every organization that comes into existence in and after 1952 and which has 20 or more employees. So every organization which has 20 or more employees, they have to follow the recognized PF procedures and all the rules and regulations. So employer having less than 20 employees can also have the scheme of PF, but with the consent of this is a typo here, it should be employees. With the consent of every employees, the employer with less than 20 number of employees, they can also start this recognized PF, but only after getting the consent from every employee. So the PF is maintained by the central government, but if employer has more than 100 employees, then employer can also maintain the Provident Fund, but for this purpose, the employer will have to take permission from the Commissioner of Provident Fund as well as the Commissioner of Income Tax. And if both the Commissioner have given the permission, then the PF is known as recognized PF. Okay. So in case the employer is making any kind of Provident Fund on its own, and for this purpose he has already taken the permission from the Commissioner of Provident Fund as well as the Commissioner of Income Tax, then in that case the PF will be known as the recognized PF, because both the commissioners are recognizing this Provident Fund. In case the Commissioner of Income Tax has not given permission, then such PF is unrecognized PF. Okay. So after 1952 Provident Fund Act, it was made applicable for every organizations having more than 20 or more employees to have the scheme of Provident Fund in place. But Provident Fund आपका usually central government maintain करता है, but in case employer has more than 100 employees and they want to maintain the PF, maintenance मतलब how to invest the corpus of the fund and how to invest these into certain kind of securities, and whatever the interest they'll get, how they are going to distribute. So every maintenance part is now with the employer and not with the central government. And if both the commissioners, that is Commissioner of Provident Fund as well as Commissioner of Income Tax, have given the permission, then it will become a recognized provident fund. और अगर आपका कमिश्नर ऑफ इनकम टैक्स नहीं देता है परमिशन, तो वो होगा आपका रिकॉग्नाइज्ड प्रोविडेंट फंड, अनरिकॉग्नाइज्ड प्रोविडेंट फंड. There is one more, that is public provident fund, and which is very important from the examination point of view. This we will do in detail in the coming slides. Okay, so first we'll quickly revise the tax treatment of your statutory provident fund, recognized provident fund and unrecognized provident fund. So if I say about the employer's contribution, so whatever the employer, that the company is contributing to the provident fund, under statutory provident fund it is exempt from tax. Under unrecognized provident fund also it is exempt from tax, but for recognized provident fund, exempt is lower of actual investment or 12% of salary for retirement benefit, whichever is lower. So recognized provident fund में आपकी condition है, apart from that statutory provident fund और आपकी unrecognized provident fund, it is exempted. Or salary for retirement benefit, now I assume that you all know it is basic salary, DA forming part of retirement benefit, and commission if it is given as a fixed percentage on the turnover achieved by the employee. Now next is deduction under section 80C on employees contribution. So 80C आपका investment point of view से है, so जो भी employee अगर contribute कर रहा है वो allowed है. So under SPF and RPF, ठीक है, it is allowed, it is available, but for unrecognized provident fund it is not available. So 80C की deduction आपकी unrecognized provident fund में नहीं है. Then interest credited to provident fund. So for statutory provident fund it is exempt, and similarly interest is also exempted for unrecognized provident fund, but for recognized provident fund it is lower of what? Actual interest and 9.5% of total investment. Employer and employee both, जो दोनों मिलकर total investment कर रहे हैं उसका 9.5% या फिर actual interest, whatever the lower is the amount, it will be exempted from the tax. Okay. And the last one is lump sum payment at the time of retirement or termination of services. So SPF के केस में तो directly exempt है कि चाहे आप termination लो, आप resignation लो, चाहे retirement लो, it will be exempted. But in case of recognized provident fund, it will be fully exempt if any one of the following conditions are satisfied. क्या conditions है? That the employee retires or resigns after doing continuous service of 5 years. Okay, so अगर वो continuous service कर रहा है 5 years की, then whatever amount he is getting after the resignation or the retirement, it will be exempted. Or in case this rule doesn't applicable and the job of employee gets terminated because of reasons beyond his control, जैसे उसकी health खराब हो गई या employer का business discontinue हो गया या completion हो गया वो project जिसपे employee was employed. So अगर कुछ भी ऐसी conditions होती हैं which are beyond his control, उस केस में अगर termination हो जाता है तो भले ही आपकी continuous service 5 years की ना हो, आपको exemption मिल जाएगी. Third one is in case of death of employee. तो अगर 5 साल से पहले अगर death हो जाती है employee की, तो उस केस में भी आपका जो भी amount होगा that will be exempted from tax. And the last one is in case of change of job. So for example, आपका जो employee था वो unrecognized provident fund से दूसरे employer के पास जाता है जो recognized provident fund बनाता है. So उस केस में आपका total service period will be added. तो भले ही आपका दोनों का मिला के कम है, but in case आपका दोनों का मिला के 5 years से ज्यादा है, so whatever amount you will get, it will be exempted from tax. Under unrecognized provident fund, आपको कोई exemption नहीं है except the employee's contribution to UPF. So सिर्फ यही आपका exempted है. What? In the case of lump sum payment. So जो आपका employee जो contribute कर रहा है, खाली वही आपको exemption है. Apart from that, आपका जो employer contribute कर रहा है और जो interest आ रहा है employer contribution पे, it is fully taxable under your income from salary head under section 1873. और जो आपके एम्प्लॉय पे कंट्रीब्यूशन आ रहा है, जो इंटरेस्ट आपके एम्प्लॉयज के कंट्रीब्यूशन पे आ रहा है, इट इज टैक्सेबल एज योर इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज अंडर सेक्शन 56. ओके, सो जो एम्प्लॉयर का कंट्रीब्यूशन है और जो उसका इंटरेस्ट है वो आपके सैलरी में जा रहा है, ऐड हो रहा है, और जो आपका एम्प्लॉयज के कंट्रीब्यूशन पे जो इंटरेस्ट है वो आपकी इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज आ रहा है, और जो आपका एम्प्लॉय का कंट्रीब्यूशन था वो खाली एग्जेम्प्ट हो रहा है. फ्रॉम विच अमाउंट? फ्रॉम द लम्प सम पेमेंट दैट ही इज गेटिंग एट द टाइम ऑफ रिटायरमेंट और टर्मिनेशन ऑफ सर्विस. सो जो भी आपका अमाउंट है उसमें से सिर्फ आप ये एग्जेम्प्ट कर सकते हो, उसके अलावा कुछ भी एग्जेम्प्ट नहीं होगा. So this is the tax treatment of all these three. If I talk about the withdrawals, so in case of statutory provident fund and recognized provident fund, withdrawal is allowed after 5 years. Okay, अगर आप 5 years के बाद अगर आप कुछ withdraw करा रहे हो, then such amount is fully exempt from tax subject to the following rules. And what all are the rules? First is, he can withdraw an amount equal to 6 times his basic pay for financing his medical treatment for his children or for his spouse. So basic pay से 6 times तक का आप withdraw करा सकते हो, that will be exempted. In case he withdraw 50% of the contribution for marriage of self या फिर अपने भाई बहन की या फिर अपने बच्चों की, but उस केस में there is minimum service period is 7 years. तो 50% तक का कंट्रीब्यूशन इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. ठीक है, जो आप विड्रॉ करा रहे हो. कैन विड्रॉ अप टू 24 टाइम्स ऑफ सैलरी फॉर परचेजिंग अ प्लॉट एंड 36 टाइम्स ऑफ हिज पे फॉर कंस्ट्रक्टिंग अ न्यू हाउस, बट उसके केस में भी मिनिमम सर्विस पीरियड इज 7 years. देन कैन विड्रॉ 12 टाइम्स ऑफ मंथली सैलरी फॉर हाउस रिनोवेशन एंड रिपेयर्स. कैन विड्रॉ अ रिक्वायर्ड अमाउंट बिफोर गेटिंग सेटल्ड टू अब्रॉड, and can withdraw up to 90% of the total savings on attainment of age of 54 years. So this is only for the purpose of your knowledge and understanding. This is not very important from the examination of point of view, but you should be aware about the tax treatments in case there is a partial withdrawal from the SPF or RPF. Okay, अगर कुछ withdraw होता है in spite of taking the retirement or in spite of taking the resignation, if you are withdrawing the amount, then under all circumstances which amount will be exempted in which condition. Okay, so these are the conditions. If I talk about the unrecognized provident, so any kind of withdrawals from unrecognized provident fund are always fully taxable. So अगर आप कोई भी partial withdraw कराते हो from your unrecognized provident fund, then this amount will be fully taxable. Okay, I hope this video is clear. We'll definitely do the practical questions in the class. I'll be making one more video on your provident or public provident fund, and after that we'll start doing the practical questions in your live lecture. Okay, till that time, in case you have any doubts, please do reach me. Please ask your doubts, and thank you for watching this video.